She stood in the doorway, one hand on her hip, the other holding a suitcase. "I'm pregnant," she said coldly. "But it's his, James. Not yours." That sentence carved a canyon through my chest. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even emotional. Melissa, the woman I'd spent the last 6 years building a life with, looked at me like I was a piece of furniture she no longer needed. Something worn. Something replaceable. "I need you gone by tonight," she added. "Brandon's moving in tomorrow." Brandon. The name hit like a slap. I'd heard it before. I'd seen it in her phone, half hidden under saved contacts with emojis. I saw the briefcase Brandon text threads. She told me he was her new project manager. Said he was nothing to worry about. That I was acting insecure. Guess I should have been worried after all. "Brandon's not taking care of your kid," I muttered. It was the only thing I could say. "You're going to throw all this away for some corporate clown with a leased car and veneers?" Melissa smirked. "He's got a real plan. He's ambitious. You just exist, James. You work in tech support and play Xbox. I want more." There was no yelling, no crying, no begging. I didn't give her that. I packed my things silently while she FaceTimed Brandon from the kitchen like I was already gone. I could hear them laughing about curtain colors. She told him she wanted to paint over the depressing gray in the bedroom. My bedroom. My walls. When I left, it was raining. No umbrella. Just a duffel bag and a hoodie soaked through before I made it to the curb. The Uber driver didn't ask questions, but I saw the pity in his rearview mirror. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of couch surfing. Grinding. Clawing my way out of the hole she threw me into. I got serious about my freelance work. Landed some tech contracts that turned into real money. I stopped drinking. Started running. Grew a spine. But I never forgot her face in that doorway. The fake sympathy. The way she said pregnant, like it was a death sentence for my relevance. Last week, I got an unexpected invitation. A media company I consult for was throwing a launch party in LA. Red carpet. Press. Investors. They asked me to speak about digital transformation in emerging markets. I agreed. I had no idea who else would be on the guest list. That night, I stepped out of a black Escalade wearing a suit that cost more than my old rent. Cameras flashed. My name hit the announcer's mic. And then I saw her. Melissa. On the arm of Brandon, of course. Except he looked thinner now. Paler. Hairline retreating like a scared soldier. Melissa's dress was clinging too tight in all the wrong places, like she was trying to squeeze herself into the woman she used to be. Our eyes met. Her smile froze. Brandon's hand tightened on hers. She didn't expect me there. She didn't expect me to look better. She sure as hell didn't expect the host to pull me onto the stage, announce my name with a title even I wasn't used to hearing yet. Tech visionary. Multi-million-dollar investor. Founder of Apex Grid Systems. James Carson. The spotlight hit me. And I smiled. Not at the cameras, at her. You see, the baby she left me for? Never existed. That lie was just the final blade she used to cut me down. But I didn't stay down. This is the story of how I rose. And how she crumbled. And it all started the moment she kicked me out. They say betrayal doesn't happen in a moment. It builds like pressure behind a dam. And eventually, when that dam cracks, everything comes rushing out at once. The signs were there. I just didn't want to read them. Melissa used to be warm. Funny. Playful. We'd binge-watch late-night shows together, roast each other's playlists, fall asleep with our legs tangled under one blanket. Then, like a switch flipped, she became cold. Distant. Her phone lived face down. Her smile? Gone. Replaced by polite nods and strained silences. At first, I thought it was stress. Work. Hormones. Maybe she was just tired. But then she started staying out later, always with a different excuse. Girls' night. Yoga class. Networking mixer. But her perfume smelled like cologne, and she never brought home any yoga mats. I remember one night in particular. She came home past midnight. I was still awake, sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll my phone. When she walked in, I could smell alcohol and something else, something male. Her lipstick was smeared, and she avoided my eyes. Where were you? I asked. Out, she said flatly, dropping her heels by the door. Out where? She grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, not answering. I pressed again. Melissa. She finally turned and snapped. Why do you always need to know everything? I'm not a child. No, you're my wife, I said. You don't come home at 1 a.m. wearing a stranger's cologne without an explanation. Her eyes narrowed. Are you accusing me of something? At that moment, I backed off. I gaslit myself. Thought maybe I was overreacting. but I couldn't shake the pit in my stomach. The next day, I took matters into my own hands. I'd never gone through her phone before. I hated the idea of it, but I had this weight in my chest I couldn't carry anymore. When she left for a meeting that Saturday, I opened her laptop, same iCloud, synced like clockwork. She never expected me to look there. That's when I saw the truth. Messages, photos, videos. Not one mistake. Not one night. This was a full-blown, coordinated betrayal. It had been going on for months. His name was Brandon Whitmore, some guy she met at a product launch. Mid-level marketing exec. Looked like a gym rat with a LinkedIn profile. Their messages were full of inside jokes, dinner plans, late-night selfies, and worse. She even sent him pictures from our bed. My bed. The part that hit the hardest wasn't even the infidelity, it was the way she spoke about me. He still thinks we're solid. Poor guy. I might fake a pregnancy. That'll speed it up. I swear, I die a little inside every time he touches me. That last one? That one shattered something deep. I closed the laptop slowly, hands shaking. My heart wasn't beating, it was thudding, loud and ugly, like a drum signaling war. I sat in silence for an hour. The man I thought I was, husband, provider, friend, was gone. Replaced by some dumb, blind fool everyone laughed at behind closed doors. My marriage wasn't a relationship anymore. It was a performance. A lie I was too stupid to stop clapping for. When she walked through the door that afternoon, she smiled. Fake. Mechanical. Hey, babe. I looked her dead in the eye. Who the hell is Brandon? Her face went pale, then red, then twisted into something I hadn't seen before, raw, venomous, cornered. What were you doing on my laptop? I asked you a question. You had no right. I stood up. Answer me. She crossed her arms. He's a man who actually sees me, who listens, who doesn't hide behind spreadsheets and ramen noodles. I laughed. I couldn't help it. So you're blowing him in parking lots for emotional support? She slapped me. Hard. I didn't flinch. You're disgusting, she hissed. No, I said. You are. And I want a divorce. But she didn't blink. Instead, she said the line I'd never forget. Perfect. That makes it easier to tell you. I'm pregnant. And it's not yours. She walked away, humming. Like she hadn't just dropped a bomb that turned our life into rubble. She stood in front of me like she had all the power in the world. One hand resting on her hip, the other casually scrolling her phone like she was waiting for an Uber. And I was standing in the middle of my own living room like a guest in someone else's house. The silence after she said it, I'm pregnant, and it's not yours, was worse than the words themselves. My ears were ringing. My pulse thundered so loud I could barely think. But even in that chaos, I remember every detail. The color of her dress, the wine stain on the rug, the smugness on her face, like betrayal was a sport and she just broke the world record. I clenched my jaw. You're serious? She looked up from her phone. What do you think, James? That I'd lie about something like this? I almost laughed at the irony. Lying was her first language. You faked a pregnancy in your texts, I said. What's this? A sequel. She narrowed her eyes. That was a joke. This isn't. You expect me to believe you cheated, disrespected me, called me pathetic to your boyfriend, and now you're keeping his baby under my roof? She shrugged. This won't be your roof much longer. I'm keeping the house. That made me take a step back. I'd worked 2 jobs for this house. I refinanced my car to afford the down payment. I laid those floorboards with my own hands. I stared at her. Melissa, this isn't just betrayal anymore. This is war. She rolled her eyes. Stop being dramatic. You'll be fine. You always land on your feet, right? I should have screamed. I should have thrown something. But I didn't. Instead, I walked upstairs, grabbed 2 trash bags, and started throwing my clothes inside. She followed me like a shadow, narrating her victory. Brandon has a better job, better vision. He's going to make something of himself. I want a man who knows what he wants, not some background character. I stopped packing and turned toward her. A background character? I paid for everything in this house while you played around with filters and brunch photos. I covered your student loans. I believed in you when no one else did. She smirked. Well, now I believe in someone else. That was the final blow. Not the betrayal. Not even the baby. It was how little I meant in her story. She handed me my coat at the door like I was a visitor who'd overstayed his welcome. No guilt. No hesitation. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, she said. We're both adults. No, I replied, gripping the handle. I'm an adult. You're just a spoiled child playing house until someone with bigger toys comes along. She slammed the door behind me. I walked to the curb with nothing but a duffel bag and a shattered soul. That night, I slept on my brother's couch. I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking about every moment I missed, every time I let a red flag pass because I didn't want to seem paranoid. Every smile she faked. Every night she said, "I love you," with another man's scent on her skin. She broke me. Publicly. Without remorse. She didn't just cheat, she paraded it. But that night, on that couch, something shifted. I knew I had two choices: stay broken, or become something she'd never see coming. So I started planning. Quietly. Patiently. Like a man with nothing to lose, because she made sure I had nothing. And that's when the idea of revenge stopped being a fantasy and started becoming a blueprint. The hardest part of starting over isn't the lack of money or the loneliness. It's the silence. After Melissa kicked me out, the world went quiet. My phone stopped buzzing. Friends who used to invite us to dinner suddenly got busy. People picked sides without ever hearing both stories, and they sure as hell didn't pick mine. Melissa was charming. She knew how to spin a narrative. And I was just the guy who couldn't keep her happy. I spent the first few weeks numbed out, sleeping on my brother Kyle's couch. He tried to cheer me up: beer, old movies, punching bags in his garage, but nothing helped. My pride was in the gutter. Every morning I woke up to a house I didn't own, a bed that wasn't mine, and a woman in my head who had rewritten my life like I was a typo. But something changed around week 3. I got an email from a startup I'd helped months earlier, just a casual favor at the time. Their CTO had quit, and they wanted me to come on as a consultant. At first, I was going to decline. I wasn't in the headspace for tech. But then I thought of Melissa, of her little speech about how Brandon had a real plan, and how I just existed. So I said yes. What started as a 2-week project turned into 6 months of deep work. I built their back end, streamlined their operations, helped secure a funding round. When their product launched, it didn't just succeed, it boomed. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something other than bitterness. I felt purpose. And then the money came. Real money. Equity shares. Investor meetings. Conferences. My name started floating in rooms I never had access to before. I was no longer James, the tech support guy. I was James Carson, co-founder of Apex Grid Systems. I moved into a downtown apartment, nothing flashy, but clean, minimal, mine. I cut off deadweight friends. I blocked Melissa. No arguments. No drama. Just disappearance. But life, like fire, spreads in unpredictable ways. A year into my new life, I ran into someone I hadn't seen since the collapse: Sarah Monroe. She was a reporter who used to cover local startups. We'd met at a mixer once, had a few laughs, but it never went anywhere. This time, we crossed paths at a tech summit in San Diego. "James?" She blinked. "You James Carson?" I smiled. "Last time I checked." We had coffee. Then dinner. Then 5 straight hours of laughing and unpacking each other's baggage. She wasn't nosy or overbearing, just sharp, curious, real. She didn't look at me like I was broken. She looked at me like I was building. It was the first time I'd been seen in years. Sarah ended up writing a piece on Apex Grid, our vision, our growth, and my journey from rock bottom to reinvention. The article went viral. Investors started calling. Podcast invites rolled in. Suddenly, I wasn't just a name, I was a story. And that's when Melissa saw me again. I didn't know it at the time, but she was watching from a distance. Her perfect life with Brandon? Yeah, it started to crumble. He got laid off. The baby she used to justify kicking me out? She miscarried or lied. I still don't know. Either way, there was no child. Just manipulation. She tried to DM me. I ignored it. She emailed me. "Can we talk?" I deleted it. But then came the moment I hadn't planned and couldn't resist. A high-profile launch party. Red carpet. Media. Investors. And Apex Grid was the centerpiece. I was invited to speak. Melissa and Brandon? Also invited. He was freelancing for one of the sponsors, barely clinging to relevance. The universe doesn't usually give you second chances. But that night, it handed me one wrapped in velvet. And I planned to unwrap it slow, and in public. I saw her before she saw me. Melissa was standing near the champagne bar in a silver dress that was trying a little too hard. It clung in the wrong places, shimmered under the lights like desperation. Her hair was curled, overdone. Her smile manufactured. And then there was Brandon. Same guy. Just smaller. Not physically, no. But the energy, the ego, it had shrunk. His suit looked rented. He didn't have that cocky lean anymore. He stood beside her like a backup dancer who'd missed rehearsal. Eyes shifting nervously, lips tight. Not the man she risked it all for, just a tired punchline. They didn't belong here. Not in this room. But I did. The host called me up halfway through the night. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man whose story has inspired startups from LA to Tokyo, James Carson, founder of Apex Grid Systems. Applause erupted. And that's when Melissa turned. Her jaw dropped. Her glass tilted slightly in her hand. She wasn't smiling now. I walked past her on the way to the stage. Didn't even look at her. Just walked. And I could feel the heat of her confusion, her panic, trying to figure out how I got here. The speech wasn't long, 2 minutes, tops. I spoke about resilience. About how failure teaches you faster than success. About being underestimated, discarded, and how that's not the end, it's the spark. Every word, I aimed right through her. When I stepped down, Sarah met me at the bottom of the stairs. She looked stunning, elegant, understated. She slipped her arm around mine like we'd been doing this forever. And that was when Melissa approached. She waited until Sarah stepped aside to take a call. Like a predator who finally saw her opening. James, she breathed. Well. I turned slowly. Melissa. Her eyes scanned me like I was an artifact she forgot she once owned. I had no idea you'd made it this far. You look incredible. I raised a brow. Better than I did carrying trash bags in the rain? She flinched. You didn't respond to my emails, she said softly. I know. I just thought maybe we could talk. Not like, get back together. I miss talking to you. I tilted my head. Do you miss me? Or do you miss not being embarrassed that the man you tossed aside made it further than the one you chose? She blinked fast. Her voice cracked. Brandon's going through a rough patch. I smiled coldly. I'm sure he is. There was a pause. She reached out to touch my sleeve. James, you were always solid. Safe. I think maybe I didn't realize what I had. Correction, I said, stepping back. You did realize. You just didn't care. She didn't respond. Her face twisted for just a second, somewhere between regret and rage. You don't have to be cruel, she whispered. I'm not, I replied. This is mercy. Because if I wanted to be cruel, I'd tell everyone here the real story. The lies. The fake pregnancy. The day you threw me out like trash to build your dream life. She bit her lip. James? But I was done. Sarah came back, phone tucked away, and slipped her arm back through mine. I looked at Melissa one last time. You made your choice, I said. Now live in it. And we walked away. I didn't look back, but I could feel her burning. The party didn't end that night. At least not for me. After we left the red carpet and the velvet-lit ballroom, Sarah and I went up to the rooftop bar of the hotel. City lights flickered like stars that finally understood what they were meant to do, shine without apology. The wind was soft, and my glass clinked gently against hers. She smiled. You handled that better than I would have. I exhaled, finally letting my shoulders drop. You think? She nodded. You didn't need revenge. You became the reason she regrets everything. That's louder than anything you could have said. I didn't reply. I just let that sit. Because as much as I wanted to agree with her, part of me still burned. Not out of hatred, but clarity. The turning point wasn't the speech. It wasn't even seeing Melissa's face crack under the weight of her own decisions. It was what came the next day. See, after the launch, the article Sarah had written months earlier started resurfacing blogs, LinkedIn posts, podcasts. Everyone wanted a piece of the from rock bottom to boardroom story. I got offers, deals, invitations to speak. But that's not what made the next moment so sharp. It was the message. From Brandon. Subject, need to talk. Urgent. I almost deleted it. But curiosity, that dangerous little thing, convinced me otherwise. He wrote, James, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I did a lot of things I'm not proud of. Melissa, she wasn't honest with either of us. She used us. I thought we were building something real. But she's been draining my accounts, lying about work, and look, I don't expect sympathy. I just thought maybe you should know what kind of person she really is. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. Brandon. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I needed validation, but because even he finally saw it. Melissa hadn't just betrayed me. She'd played him too. Like a violin with broken strings. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring out. Then it rang again. And again. Same number. I finally answered on the 4th ring. James, her voice cracked. Please don't hang up. I didn't speak. Can we meet? Just talk. I don't want anything from you. I just need to explain. You don't owe me your time, I know that. But please, 5 minutes. The old me would have folded. The man I used to be would have rushed to meet her, desperate for answers. But I wasn't that man anymore. I met her, but on my terms. We sat across from each other in a small cafe downtown. Neutral ground. She looked older. Not tired. Worn. Like the kind of worn that doesn't come from years but from regret. I lost everything, she whispered, stirring a coffee she wasn't drinking. Brandon left. The accounts are frozen. My parents won't talk to me. I don't even know where to go. That's not my problem, I said, calm. Tears welled in her eyes, but no sound came. For once, she had no words. Just pain. I know what I did, she said finally. And I know saying sorry won't fix it. It won't, I agreed. Because this isn't about fixing anything. It's about living with what you broke. She looked up. Do you ever think about what we had? I leaned forward. Every time I open my laptop, step into a meeting, or sign a new deal, I think about how you gave up everything for nothing. And I thank you. Because if you hadn't burned me to the ground, I'd have never become fire. I stood up. And that was the last time I ever saw her. There's a strange silence that comes after closure. It's not peace, not at first. It's more like the moment after a storm when everything is still soaked, branches broken, but the clouds are finally gone. That's where I was after I walked away from Melissa for the last time. I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. But I did feel free. No more what-ifs. No more reruns of old arguments in my head. No more trying to piece together the version of her I used to love. That man, the one who held on for too long, was gone. And I had no intention of ever meeting him again. The next 6 months were a blur of movement. Apex Grid expanded faster than anyone expected. We opened new offices, closed major contracts, got a feature in Forbes Tech Weekly. I wasn't just a success story anymore. I was someone the industry started watching. And with every headline, I remembered the version of me she said would never be more than background. Guess the credits rolled, and I became the lead. But success, I learned, isn't just about climbing. It's about choosing who climbs with you. Sarah stayed by my side. Not as some trophy girlfriend or PR prop, she was my sounding board. My calm in the chaos. When I questioned whether I deserved any of this, she reminded me that building something out of ashes is the rarest kind of strength. One night, as we sat overlooking the city from the penthouse suite I once thought was unreachable, she asked me a question I didn't expect. Do you forgive her? I stared at my glass for a long time before answering. No. She nodded slowly, not judging, not pushing, just listening. But I'm done hating her, I added. Because she doesn't deserve space in this chapter. That was the moment the last thread snapped. The ghost of Melissa finally stopped whispering. I didn't stalk her socials. Didn't ask around. Didn't care. She became a name from a different life. A footnote in my origin story. And strangely, that's when the real rise began. Not just financial, though the numbers were wild. I bought back the house she kicked me out of, not to live in, but to renovate and donate to a veterans housing project. I visited my old neighborhood, left a check for the local rec center that used to keep me sane as a teenager. I even hired a few guys who were on the edge of giving up, because I knew what that edge looked like. But more than the deals and the interviews, it was how I felt waking up. I didn't dread mornings anymore. I didn't live in fear of betrayal. I wasn't constantly checking over my shoulder, waiting for the next lie. I was just living. Fully. Honestly. Loudly. And every once in a while, I'd run into someone who used to know us, me and Melissa. They'd give that awkward smile, like they didn't know what to say. And I'd shake their hand, wish them well, and keep walking. Because I had nothing to prove. That was her mistake. She thought breaking me would bury me. But all it did was force me to dig deeper, rebuild stronger, and learn how to set fires of my own. Without screaming. Without violence. Just quiet, relentless elevation. And the man she left behind? He never came back. They say time heals all wounds. That's a lie. Time doesn't heal. Clarity does. Purpose does. Living louder than the pain does. I didn't heal because time passed. I healed because I stopped letting the past define me. A year after the party, I stood on a TEDx stage in front of a crowd of young entrepreneurs. The spotlight felt warm, no longer foreign. I wasn't thinking about Melissa. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about what it meant to survive and then thrive. My talk was titled, "What They Took Was Never Yours to Keep." I spoke about how betrayal isn't the end of a story, it's just the plot twist that forces you to write a better chapter. I didn't mention her name. Didn't need to. Everyone has a Melissa in their life. A person who cut too deep, loved too little, and left too early. But I also told them something they didn't expect. I'm glad it happened. Gasps. Stunned silence. And then I explained. If she hadn't betrayed me, I'd still be in that old house. Still taking small jobs. Still convincing myself I was happy because it was easier than asking for more. Her betrayal wasn't a curse. It was the match that lit the fire I didn't know I was capable of becoming. After the speech, dozens of people came up to talk. Some shook my hand. Others cried. A few just stared, trying to process what they'd just heard. But the one moment that stayed with me came from a kid, maybe 19, thin, nervous, eyes full of something familiar. He waited until everyone left and then said, "She just left me for someone else. Took my car, my laptop, even my dog. I thought I was going to kill myself last night. Then I saw your talk." I didn't give him some cheap, motivational soundbite. I didn't tell him it'd be okay. I just looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You're still breathing. That means you've still got a shot." That was the truth. Not everyone gets revenge. Not everyone gets success. But everyone gets the chance to choose who they become after the wreckage. And that's what Melissa never understood. She thought she was writing the end of my story when she kicked me out. But really, she just gave me the pin. Today, I own 3 companies. I mentor young men who feel lost, broken, discarded. I live with integrity, not because I want to look good, but because I know what it feels like to be lied to by someone who swore they loved you. Sarah and I? We're not rushing anything. We build slowly, honestly, with open scars and stronger skin. And sometimes, in quiet moments, I still think about that rainy night. The trash bag in my hand. The silence in my chest. The way she said, "It's his." I used to replay it like a punishment. Now, I replay it like a beginning. Because it wasn't the day I lost everything. It was the day I became unstoppable. So if you're reading this, if you've been betrayed, discarded, told you're not enough, I need you to remember something. They don't get to write your ending. You do. And if you're lucky, you'll thank them someday. Not because they were right, but because they were dead wrong. And you proved it with every damn breath you took after they left.